Funding for this program is provided by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of the complete line of Cajun King seafood seasoning mixes and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
Louisiana. Hello, I'm Chef John Folse, welcoming you to this great state of ours. We're real proud of our people, places, and food, and I'd like for you to know a little bit more about it. So join me and some of my friends as we visit the historical food towns of this state and cook up another great Taste of Louisiana. Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Taste of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, and thank you for stopping by as we're still looking for those great historical food towns of Louisiana. Today we're going to the southeast corner of the state. We're going to the parish of Washington, and we're going to visit the towns of Franklinton and Bogalusa. Boy, I tell you, that's a strange name. Bogalusa actually gets its name from the Choctaw Indian word for Black Creek. This is the Bogalusa City Hall. Look at that architecture. Kind of looks like the top of one of those old steamboats that went up and down the Mississippi River. This is the Sullivan House, and it was the home of the first mayor, and it's on the National Register. This is the Indian Museum, and the Indian Museum right there outside of Bogalusa is housed right in Cassidy Park, which is a great park right there in the town, and you might want to bring your family to visit the Indian Museum because there's a lot of artifacts from the days of the Choctaws right there in Washington Parish. You saw that buffalo. There was a lot of buffaloes roaming Louisiana in the early days. A lot of people don't know that. Here we're going to Franklinton, and Franklinton actually gets its name from one of our great statesmen, Ben Franklin. And Ben was actually gave the town its name, but it changed the name to Franklinton because there was two Franklins in Louisiana. This is Mile Branch Settlement right in Franklinton, and it is on the grounds of the Washington Parish Fair. And the Washington Parish Fair is one of the biggest in all of the South for sure, but it's the largest free fair in America. And we're going to talk about that with our guest today, Bob Lamb, who's a really good friend of ours from that area, and he's going to come in to talk just a little bit about not only Mile Branch Settlement here, but also Franklinton. Here at Mile Branch, you see this guy, Ralph Jones. He's giving a little demonstration on shoeing horses because Mile Branch is one of the early Louisiana settlements in Louisiana. It's a recreation, actually, of one of the settlements right there in Washington Parish. And this little settlement is open during the time of the Washington Fair, which is in October. And there's a lot of exhibits that are shown to the public, but at the same time, demonstrations for children. This right here is Betty Pidgeot Hunt, and she's actually doing a little butter. She's making butter from cream, churning it in that pitcher. And she is one of the original family members, or I should say an heir of the original family who built this little cabin. All these cabins are moved onto the site, and Bob is going to tell us how all of that happened. You see that sweet potato? I'm going to actually do a dish created with sweet potatoes right from Washington Parish. Here, more cooking demonstrations going on right here in one of these cabins. All of the cabins were moved to the site, actually founded in and around Washington Parish and moved on to make sure that those cabins just didn't fall apart over the years. Look how beautiful they're restored. Some of them are on the National Register, by the way. All of the chimneys have been redone. There's open hearth cooking going on. Obviously, a lot of music taking place here. And it's a great, great part of Louisiana. When we think of Franklinton and Bogalusa, we think of some of the greatest areas in the state of Louisiana, but a lot different from the Cajun country of South Louisiana. And as I said, Bob Lamb is going to come to visit, and we're going to talk about that part of Louisiana, a very, very nice part of our state. You're going to look down into this bowl here because this is what I'm going to do for you today, one of the first dishes. And you saw that sweet potato being peeled and scraped a couple minutes ago, and that sweet potato has been chopped up and cubed, and we're going to use this in a soup that I found right in Bogalusa. And this soup is a sweet potato spinach soup that's going to be flavored right here with smoked chicken. I made a nice smoked chicken and tomato salad, and I had a piece left, so I'm going to cube it up and put it into this great soup. This soup did come to me from a good friend of mine right in Bogalusa. So I'm going to fire up my little black iron pot here, and I'm going to put a little buttery flavored oil right down into the bottom of it. This soup is just a great example of how you can combine a lot of ingredients into a pot to create a soup that you wouldn't normally think of. Just kind of clean out the refrigerator sometimes and you'll get a magnificent soup. This is a great example. I'm going to start off by putting a little bit, of course, what else? Onions, celery, bell pepper. You know the trinity in Louisiana cooking. Put this, a little green bell pepper. And you want to wilt these vegetables nicely. I'm going to put some of my favorite herb in seasoning, a little garlic, right down into it. You can hear that pot sizzling already. I'm going to saute all of this around. Of course, again, all I want to do is wilt all of these vegetables down into the pot, and then I'm going to add my spinach. Now, this is a lot, if you think about it, like oysters Rockefeller. We always start Rockefeller by onion, celery, bell pepper, a little butter, and then sauteing the spinach right down into it. You can use in this dish mustard greens. In fact, that was the main ingredients used in this dish in Bogalusa, but I love spinach, so I'm going to kind of use a little spinach in the pot today. Stir that around. It also gives a great, great color to the soup. Now I'll add into that some diced smoked chicken. Got to put that pretty smoked chicken in there, and you can imagine the flavor that's going to come into that pot because of that. And then the cubed sweet potatoes. Now, this can be, you can use yams, you can use white potatoes, but the sweet potatoes gives that really beautiful color to the soup. So I'll look at that already, huh? All that nice green and bright orange down into the pot. And I'll stir all of this around, saute it until all those great flavors start to marry. You can imagine the flavor of the smoked chicken, the spinach obviously very nice and fresh. It was crispy when it went into the pot, but use frozen spinach if you'd like. And then the nice sweet potatoes, carrots, potatoes, whatever you want to use. Okay, now I'll add some pretty colors. I'll add that red bell pepper, and look at a little cloves of garlic that's going to go in right at the same time. I'll put some whole garlic in it in addition to the chopped, and then a little bit flour, because that's going to become the thickening agent for the soup. You could use cornstarch, but I'm going to put just a little bit flour. I'm making the Creole blonde roux, or the butter roux of Creole cooking. Stir that around, and then a little bit chicken stock. And, of course, you can use water. You could use a little beef stock if you wanted to. But I'm going to put chicken stock, and you can make chicken stock by just walking down the aisles of the store and getting some chicken bouillon cubes and making sure that you dissolve them well in hot water, and then you have some nice chicken stock. Or just boil some bones together, chicken bones together. Look how pretty all of that is. Then a little bit cream. Use yogurt or skim milk, pasteurized skim milk if you want to stay away from cream, because I know a lot of people are dieting, but you don't want to miss the flavor of this great soup because of a diet, so use skim milk. And then, of course, now we can season with a little bit, cracked black pepper would be nice, a little touch of salt, and then I'm going to put some of this real pretty variegated sage, and this is right out the herb garden, and you can see the colors on the leaves are variegated. They're not solid color. And I'll break some of that nice sage right down into the soup pot. And that's about it. That's all. You would let this cook for just a couple of minutes. The flavors will develop just beautifully into the pot. And I've got one already done, so I want to show you what it looks like. Let me move this out of the way. I got to show you this really nice soup. And of course, presentation is everything in a soup. So I want you to see how we've presented this. I've got a little bitty carved out. This is a ceramic pumpkin. And the ceramic pumpkin kind of goes perfectly with those yams and sweet potatoes, or you could actually use pumpkin in this dish. And then I'll put a little color in there again, a little purple cabbage. And then I would serve it right onto the table just like that. Isn't that beautiful? Nice little sweet potato spinach soup from Bogalusa, Louisiana. Okay, the next dish I want to do for you is, yeah, I know you're going to start making some strange sounds when I say this, because one of my favorite dishes is actually smothered or sauteed calves liver. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why would he do that? Well, because it's a great dish. Nothing's better than calves liver. And a lot of people think because, well, maybe it's full of cholesterol, they'll say. Well, hey, calf's liver isn't bad for you. Too much calf's liver is bad for you. So just eat a little bit of it and remember how great this dish is going to be with the twist that I'm going to give it right now. Because once you look on the platter, you're going to see these nice, beautiful purple onions. These are Bermuda onions, and you can see the nice circles of purple here. And the Bermuda onions are really sweet. They're full of sugar. And what I've done, I've taken them and sauteed them in butter. And then once they became wilted after about 20 minutes, I actually took them and added a little red wine to it, sweet red wine and cane syrup, and let them cook to this state right here. You can see how the caramelized onions are really nice and sweet. They're almost like a little chutney or apples, and this will be the flavor for the liver. Look how nice that is, nice and sweet. You can see the sugar from the onions and the cane syrup. So that's what the caramelized onions are going to do for the dish. But of course, I have to saute the liver first. So I'm going to season my flour here. I've got a little flour, and I'm going to season it with a little cracked pepper, a little salt, not too much, a little basil, a little thyme, and stir that around, and then I'll put the liver directly into the flour. Now, I won't dip this in any type of batter or milk because I want a very nice light coating. Of course, it'll be flavored with all of the flavorings that's down inside of the bowl here. Okay, now I'll add a little bit oil or butter to my saute pan. I'm going to, again, use a little bit of this buttery flavored oil because I like to use it. Really nice butter flavor, but without all of that cholesterol. And then I'm going to take the liver, which has already been breaded nicely in the flour, shake off all of that excess, like that, and then down into the saute pan. You see how that's starting to saute really quickly there because that pan is nice and hot. These black iron pots really cook hot. And then I would allow this to cook for just a minute until the liver is nice and light browned on one side. You don't want to overcook the liver because a lot of people tend to think that you need to cook this liver about an hour. I personally like to saute a liver for about 5 minutes on each side, and basically it's cooked. I take it out of the saute pan, and then I make my sauce. But just to show you how it's done, look how quickly that liver has cooked here. Take a look at that. Then I'll add my caramelized onions right down into the pan. How pretty that is. This is going to give all that nice sweetness to the liver. And you can put a lot of it in there. And I don't need to come in with any additional garlics or anything like that because the caramelized onions will give me all the flavor I want. But I will put a little bit fresh basil into the dish. I'll drop some fresh basil. I can use either this big mammoth basil or I can use some of the purple ruffle basil. Really, really pretty basil that grows all over Louisiana this time of year. And then I would deglaze my pot with a little bit plum wine. Now, you got to watch this. This kind of gets a little hot. You can kind of flare up. There you go. Look at that flame. Very hot. And then a little bit beef stock. Again, you can use beef bouillon. You can use consommé right out of the can. And then finish it off with a little bit chopped green onions and a touch of that Louisiana pepper sauce to give it that nice hot flavor. And that's basically all there is to the dish. I'm going to remove this because, again, I have one that's already done. So I want to move this out of the way. And I got to plate this liver up for you. You're going to really love this dish. So I want you to see exactly what I have. I've got this nice big old platter that's full of grits. Now, this is the yellow grits that we've boiled for just a couple of minutes. You can find it in any store. And I'll put the liver right on top of the plate like this. And then I have to put that nice gravy with the caramelized onions. You talk about nice. Now, I'm going to tell you, who wouldn't eat this liver dish? That's what I'd like to know. Of course, put a little bit on top of the grits as well, just like that. And then you have to finish garnishing it, of course. You have to put some of those really nice, pretty colors on top of it. I would never put out anything without a lot of good color. And that's what the dish is going to look like once it's done. You have all of those really nice colors there and beautiful liver dish. Okay, what would I serve with this? Well, I told you I made a salad. I had this really nice tomato salad. And the tomato salad is sliced Roma tomatoes with the smoked chicken and, of course, the pretty basil. This is the ruffled basil, purple basil, and a little olive oil on top of it. What a really nice dish. And then with the grits and liver, you have to have some nice potatoes. And what I've done here, I've taken some potatoes and quartered them and then cooked them in a little chicken stock and rosemary right into the oven to make sure that they were nice and brown. This is a rosemary potato. What a nice, beautiful dish this is to accompany the liver. So two really great dishes from Bogalusa and Franklinton, Louisiana. Well, I tell you, I've got a treat for you now because my good buddy, Bob, hey, Bob Lamb, come on in. Put that hat on top of the refrigerator.
What you got going on today?
How you doing, man? Good to see you.
It's hot out there today, and
I see that big old straw hat.
I tell you what, it's tough out there today.
I tell you what, Louisiana is always hot. It's great to have you. I tell you, I had such fun last time I was over at Mile Brand Settlement. What a great place that is. How's everything going in Franklinton?
Oh, it's going great today as far as that goes. We're making preparation for the next one coming up now.
Getting ready for that big fair.
Getting ready for the fair. There.
You know, when most people think of South Louisiana, even Southeast Louisiana, I guess they immediately think of Cajun and Creole. They say, well, South Louisiana's got to be bayou country, it's got to be the swamplands, it's got to have a lot of those fiddles and accordions. But actually, Washington Parish is a little bit different from that. What makes it different?
Nah, Washington Parish is quite different from that, John, as far as that goes. You know, the old, most people think of South Louisiana as the swamplands, the Cajun French, the Catholic religion. Washington Parish predominantly is a Baptist unit. The First Baptist Church in Louisiana was founded in Washington Parish. That was founded and chartered in 1812. It's no longer there, but on our fairgrounds we do have a replica of the Mile Branch. The early settlement in Washington Parish was predominantly a pioneer settlement. It's quite different from your state of Louisiana, your part, but it's primarily the pioneer area.
Now, you know, I was told that Charles Goodyear from the famous Goodyear family actually came into that part of our state in the early 1900s, about 1907, and set up a sawmill there, and it became one of the leading lumber areas of our state. And eventually, Franklinton, I think, or Bogalusa became the largest sawmill area in all the South. Is that right?
Right. At the turn of the century, Bogalusa was really very small. In between the 1900 and 1910, Washington Parish grew from a parish of approximately 8,000 to a parish of around 16,000 people, which doubled in that time.
When the fair itself, the Washington Parish Fair, largest free fair in America, when was it founded?
Well, the Washington Parish Fair was, the first Washington Parish Fair was held in 1911. That was a result of the area predominantly was a farm area. And the boll weevil had taken over in all the little communities around. It was an effort to bring these communities together into one group in order to learn a new cash crop in the area. So that was the predominant reason for the fair starting at the time it did.
Now, there's a lot of fairs all over the United States. Every county has one, every parish has one. What makes Washington's fair a little bit different?
Well, I guess really the main thing that makes Washington Parish Fair the big difference is it's a free fair. There is no gate or no admission to the fair. It is a fair that is predominantly based for an educational purpose. We have each one of your schools participate in exhibits in our education building. There are women's clubs in our women's building, but we have an art. We have crafts going on at the fair at the time. And one of the, probably besides the normal things that you see at a fair, one of our main things that we have is our Mile Branch settlement.
And I want to talk to you a little bit more about Mile Branch because obviously it is one of the most unique communities in all of South Louisiana, and I tell you, everybody ought to know about it. But when I was at the fair last year, I happened to, you know, there's all these cake sales going on, and I happened to run into that baking booth and ate a piece of cake that was the most fabulous thing, simple cake, but fantastic. And I just wanted to get you to help me share that recipe with our friends here. It's a fig cake, fig and pecan cake, which is very typical of South Louisiana, but very simple. So we want to cook that for them and show them how it's done. I've got a bowl here, And in this bowl, I have about 3 cups. Hey, you know how it's done. You work that fair every year.
We'll try it at least.
I want you to, this is 3 cups of self-rising flour and about a teaspoon of baking soda. And I'm going to put into that, let's say about 3 eggs. Why don't you just kind of break those down in there? Hey, you can get messy if you want to. I'll get messy I throw stuff all over the counter.
If I get in the kitchen, I'm going to be messy, John.
Hey, that's the way, in South Louisiana, you should be messy in the kitchen. Once all of this is, the eggs and the flour all blended together. Have you made this cake before? It looks like you've done.
No.
Okay, I'm going to put 1 cup of oil down into it like this, and you just go on and blend that all together. I want to talk about Miles Branch while you stirring this around. Miles Branch is named because it's about a mile on a little bitty mile out of town, but on a little bitty branch or a little bitty bayou. How did all that come together?
Well, Miss Bobby Johnson, back in 1975, had a dream. Her desire was to bring the originality of the fair back and preserve the history of Washington Parish on our fairground. And so she started out at that time and being a part of a family there. She came up with a cabin, one of the first cabins there, the night cabin on the ground, and it was brought to the fairground in 1976, and it just happened to coincide with our bicentennial, which made it appropriate and really an exciting thing as far as that goes with our fair.
So, but all of the buildings now actually come out of Washington Parish, and they're authentic buildings. They're not reproductions.
We have only 1 reproduction on the fairground. All the buildings that we have there, they range in date from, say, 1830 is somewhat the best determination that we can have of the oldest building we have there. And they range to a time right at the turn of the century, right at 1900. But everything there is authentic. There is no reproductions except for the one at the church.
Now, during the fair itself, which is the last weekend of October, the last end of the week of October, you actually open Miles Branch, and there's a tremendous amount of crafts, and we saw the the shoe horsing going on there. We also see grits mills going on. What else is going on there in food?
Well, we have quite a few displays going on in the fair, but I think one of probably the most interesting, we take the corn from the cob. We have a corn sheller that's taken off. We had a grits mill, and the corn is ground into corn mill and is taken to one of the cabins, and we make there's cornbread made at that time, and I guess one of the features that we really enjoy in the early morning is when some of us who work at the fair all the time. We have a little breakfast there, and they make us make cornbread from our cornmeal that's made on the fairground. We have syrup that's made from the syrup on the fairgrounds. With the crackling cornbread is from the cracklings that are made on the fairground. So it is a working village, a working settlement during the time of the fair, and this is it's continuously going. And probably the best thing about it is the participants, the people who are visiting our fair at that time, are able to participate in these things. They are able to walk in and see and taste the sassafras tea that's being made there, the cornbread that's been made there, the biscuits that's been made there, that are cooked on a wood stove by people there, and they're all dressed in the period costumes.
Well, I know one thing that's got to be interesting is for families to come through there with kids and actually see a horse being shoed, or actually watching cornbread being ground right on corn being ground on a mill for bread. And basically that's what we have here. There's a little flour and eggs, and I'm going to add the sugar to it right now. And I'm going to put about 2 cups of sugar, and then the pecans. Stir that up in there. How's that looking?
It's looking like it ought to be in the oven pretty quick.
And then I'm going to add the fig preserve. And this was, as I said, one of the cakes that's being sold in the general store. Stir all of that up in there. And then a little cinnamon and nutmeg would go down into it. And I noticed that there were a lot of things for sale in that general store. So all of the things that's being made right there on the property are actually being sold at the same time in the store.
That's correct. You can buy the cracklings when they are available. When they make them, they go pretty fast. You can buy the cornmeal there. You can buy, there's a number of, the cane syrup is there, things like that in the store. Most everything that is sold in the general store dates back to the period, to the time of, at the turn of the century. So we try to keep it as authentic, as pioneer as possible as far as that goes.
Well, it is that.
Yeah.
Y'all have accomplished that for sure. Once the cake batter is done, I would pour it into one of these buttered and floured bundt pans. I would put it into an oven at about 325, 350 degrees for about 45 minutes or so, and I want to show you what this thing looks like. Why don't you put that bowl right off to the side there, right under the counter, and I want to show you this fig cake. Take a look at that cake, and I'm going to dust it with a little bit more of this powdered sugar. Look at that thing, and you talk about light. It's almost as light as an angel food cake. To think that that batter is as tough as it is to stir in that bowl, but it's a very light cake. So it's a wonderful cake, and I want you all to try that again. Is the settlement open any other time of year other than the fair?
Okay, the settlement is open during the fair, and the fair is normally the third week of October, the third full week of October. But we have our Christmas in Mile Branch, which is an authentic pioneer Christmas in held at Mile Branch, and it is done the first weekend following Thanksgiving. So that is the Thanksgiving weekend, and that's the weekend that is open.
So it's open twice a year, so people can come in and visit it during those two times. And of course, y'all also take private tours. If anybody wants to come in and see the village and see what's going on there, y'all will actually set it up for them.
That's correct, as long as it's a large group.
Well, and I know people ask me, they said, well, if we have old bowls or artifacts or tools that were used in a settlement back in the 1800s, is there any place we can give them? Is there a museum? I saw a lot of that over at your place. So I know good and well you'd be happy to take them if they came from Washington Parish.
We try to take them from Washington Parish. It's getting to the point probably we're going to have to go out of Washington Parish maybe to get some of them that we need. But, as I say, at the present time, as far as we can tell, everything there is original from Washington Parish and is the authentic pioneer settlement.
Well, Bob, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming over to visit with us, and thank you so much. And hey, I want all of y'all to come back again as we continue to cook up more of these great Taste of Louisiana. And go to the Washington Fair. You're going to love it.
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Bruce's Yams and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
This is PBS.
The companion cookbook to A Taste of Louisiana is available for $22.95. The Evolution of Cajun and Creole Cuisine by Chef John Folse features recipes and food history behind Louisiana's cuisine. This 352-page cookbook contains over 250 recipes, including those from this show. To order, call 1-800-973-7246 or write to the address on your screen.